Welcome back. My name's Steve and thank you for joining me on my photography journey. Today I want to talk about something that is always in front of you. It's always there when you're taking pictures, but we don't always acknowledge it, and we certainly don't use it to the best of its ability. So you have your camera ready to take a picture, whether you're using the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, or the LCD screen on the back. There are a number of items around the outside that you can use that are displayed to basically help you compose your picture and get the technicalities of it correct. So today we're going to have a look at these different options, and I'll talk through what all of the different symbols mean. And just to make it clear, I'm using the Z5 for this. The DISP or display button on the back of the camera changes what is shown on the screen. This allows you to cycle through the different options that are available, and then the same options are on the EVF, they're in the LCD, except for a couple of them like the information display. And the flash information is only there if you've got a compatible flash on your camera. But the others are the same, the symbols are the same. So let's start with the kind of most simple option. It's called the Simplified Display. And on the LCD screen on the back of the camera, it will show you the I button, an exposure meter, how many pictures you've got remaining, ISO, aperture and shutter speed, metering, the battery, and the kind of touchscreen control. So let's go through all of these in turn and I'll explain what they actually mean. So the I button. This allows you to access the I menu, and this is a menu where you can populate basically with all of your most used settings. You can make selections from it using the touchscreen or the dial on the camera, the selector dial. And on another day, I'll go into detail on what you can include here, how it works, where to customize it and things. So make sure you're subscribed to see that one in the future as well. Then you've got your exposure meter. And this is a scale at the side of the screen. The center of it shows a well-exposed image, and how this is calculated is determined by the metering mode. You choose what that is, and we'll come to that in a moment because that's on the other side of the screen. When the image gets brighter, the indicator will move towards the plus sign, and then when the image gets darker, it will move towards the negative sign. And adjusting the elements of the exposure triangle will result in changes to the exposure and therefore this meter. The number of pictures remaining is shown next. And if there's more than 1,000 pictures remaining, so space in the memory for that, then it will show kind of a decimal number and then a K next to it. So 1.2K for 1,200 pictures. Obviously, this depends on the capacity of your memory card and the format, so the size of the pictures, the files that you're taking. Then we've got the three elements of the exposure triangle. We've got ISO, aperture and shutter speed. These are touch controls, so that if you press onto them, it brings up another level above it on the menu. There's arrows and double arrows to make adjustments to these, so small and large adjustments. And as mentioned earlier, the changes that you make to these three elements will affect the exposure of the image and therefore the scale on the side of it. And remember, I've talked about the exposure triangle recently, so have a look back at that and learn what that is. Then we've got the metering, and this is how the camera works out how well exposed the picture is, what's in the frame. So there are various different options for this and the type of metering that's used. And you've got matrix metering, which takes the entire frame and looks at it all overall. Then you've got center weighted metering, which still looks at the whole thing, but assigns the most weight, the most importance to the center of the image, like the center of the frame. And then we've got spot metering, which uses the focus point that you've got, and it uses the center of that to focus. Then we've got highlight weighted metering. So it means the highlights are the most important aspect. So when it does this, it means that you're not going to overexpose anywhere and risk losing data in those areas. The next thing along is the battery. And I think we're all familiar with battery displays. It shows you how much capacity is left in the battery. When it's full, it's completely colored in. And as the battery reduces, the colored in part reduces to just an empty frame. Then we've got the touchscreen control. So you can customize that screen on the back, the LCD screen, to allow you to press to focus and shoot, or basically to do nothing. If you've got an auto area AF mode selected, if you press on something there's a subject to track, then it will track that subject as it moves around in the frame. So pressing the display button will cycle the screen from the screen onto the one with the histogram on next. This keeps all the same information, all the same symbols as the previous one, but it also adds on a histogram so that you've got a bit more information about the exposure of that image and the distribution of brightness across it, basically. So as a reminder, in histograms, the x-axis shows from black to white, and the y-axis shows the number of pixels there are in the whole image of that particular tone or brightness. If the image is dark, so it's underexposed, everything will be shifted to the left. If it's light or overexposed, then everything will be shifted to the right. What we generally aim for is a nice even distribution across that whole graph. And then if you press that display button again, it moves on to the virtual horizon or leveling tool. And the clue's in the name. So this is a way of the camera working out whether it's level or not. This is particularly good when you've got things set up on a tripod and you want to line things up with the real horizon. So to be honest, I mainly use this for videos. My camera is currently on a tripod, and before I started filming, I lined things up using the virtual horizon to make sure the camera is level. So if any of my pictures behind me look a bit crooked, that's my DIY, not the camera. The camera is perfectly level. And then another press of the display button and we get the information screen. So this has everything on the screen except the actual image you're seeing through the camera. It gives you all the exposure triangle information, the memory card space, the mode you're using, and then it's also actually got all of the iMenu items on the screen. Through the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, you can still see the image, and you don't get that kind of information display. You just get the basics that we talked about in the simplified screen. And then pressing the display button again, you get the flash information. Like I said, if you have a compatible flash attached to the camera. If you don't, it will display all of the indicators. So this is kind of an extreme version of the one we started with, the simplified view. So we've got some additional indicators now. So what are they? I've got the mode, the release mode, AF area, active D-lighting, picture control, white balance, the picture area, the file size, and then on the other side we've also got the shutter that's being used and whether VR is on or not. So let's start with shooting mode. And this is simple. This is manual, auto, shutter priority, aperture priority, whatever you've got your camera set to, that's what comes up here. Then we've got the release mode, and whether you have it set up for a single exposure when you press and hold the button, or whether it's set up for a burst. And then if it's a burst, it's low, medium, high plus, whatever the camera's settings are. Next up, we've got the focus mode. And as you will have seen recently, this is manual, AFS or AFC. And then from there, you pick those and then you choose your AF area mode. This is how large the area is for focusing. And like I said, look back on my previous video to learn all about that one, what the different options are. Then we've got active D-lighting. And this is something that I haven't actually ever used, but the idea of it is that it will help if you've got an image with kind of quite contrasting lights and darks, and it will help even out that exposure across them. But like I said, I've never used it. Then something that I have used is the picture control. This only applies if you're saving your images as JPEGs rather than RAW files. And it's how you control the colors and other settings that the camera applies to the image when saving it as a JPEG. Like I said, if you're shooting RAW, saving in RAW, it doesn't do anything to it. You've still got full control. Next up is the white balance, and this will show you what you currently have set for the white balance method. you can set it to a kind of light, like cloudy or tungsten lights or something like that, or auto, or you can set a particular Kelvin value. And if you do that, it will come up with a K up at the top there. And this affects how warm or cool your picture looks. I'm going to talk about that in more detail soon. So again, get subscribed and find out when I release that one. Then you've got the image area, and this is how much of that actual sensor in the camera is being used. So as an example, using the Z5, you've got the options of FX, DX, or a particular aspect ratio, either 1:1 or 16:9. Image size and quality is next, so whether the file is small, medium, or large, and the quality of that file as well. So whether it's the basic quality or the most detailed one. Generally speaking, you can set this to RAW and as large as possible, and then that will give you the most options when it comes to editing your pictures after you've saved them onto your camera, taken them off on an SD card, put them into software to edit. That having a RAW file there is what makes the difference. And then you've got the shutter types. So again, this depends on the camera that you've got, but it's whether you're using a mechanical or an electronic one. You can also set it to auto, where the camera makes that decision based on the actual shutter speed that you've selected. Then we've got VR. What's VR? VR is vibration reduction. This is related to the camera and the lens, and is a way to reduce the movement that can create blurring in your picture. Particularly important if you're hand holding things and trying to use slower shutter speeds, because you're more likely to get movement in there, which VR can compensate for. Pressing the display button again takes us back to that simplified menu where we began. What display you use will vary depending on what you're doing with your camera, what you're taking a picture of, and that kind of thing. Also, as a secret option, you can always set a custom button to press and hold for the preview mode, which takes away a lot of those symbols, takes away any grids you've got and things, so that you can see what the actual image looks like and then release it and still have all the information you need. I set the video record button to that when I'm in photo mode. So I hope you found that useful. Next time I'll be talking about something else to help you out on your own photography journey. So until then, basically I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.